Welcome back to the Dozerian, where we explore the quiet histories and private lives of monumental figures. In Part 1, we walked the lonely corridors of George Washington's world. Tonight, we journey to the mountaintop of Monticello, a home built as a dream, to meet a man of even greater, more troubling contradictions, Thomas Jefferson. He was the Philosopher King of the American experiment, the man who etched the words "all men are created equal" into the soul of a nation, even as he held more than 600 people in bondage over his lifetime. But this is not a story of political debate. It's a story of the quiet routine, the hidden machinery of a divided mind, understood through his daily rituals, obsessive temperature readings, cold water baths, and precise violin practice. These are the quiet moments where the grand architect of liberty wrestled with the grim reality he refused to change. Close your eyes. Let us descend into the world of the contradictory dreamer. The architect of dreams. From an early age, Jefferson was shaped by the Enlightenment. Born into the Virginia gentry with land, enslaved people, and an insatiable curiosity, he devoured books and built a library that later formed the Library of Congress. He mastered languages, studied science and architecture, and filled his restless mind with visions of reason and liberty. Yet beneath this intellectual brilliance was a shy, anxious man. He could barely sit still, but he struggled to speak in public, mumbling through speeches and agonizing over every written word. Jefferson was no warrior or orator. He was a scholar and a dreamer. And in the sweltering summer of 1776, it fell to this quiet perfectionist to give the American rebellion its defining voice. The words and the reality. In a rented Philadelphia room, attended by his enslaved servant Robert Hemings, Jefferson drafted the Declaration of Independence. He poured Enlightenment ideals onto the page, creating a testament to human dignity that would echo for centuries. He wrote of self-evident truths and unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Then he wrote the 5 words that would define America's promise and expose its deepest hypocrisy. All men are created equal. This is the central, haunting contradiction of his life. How did the author of these immortal words justify owning hundreds of human beings? He privately condemned slavery as a moral depravity and a hideous blot, fearing a divine justice that one day would reckon with the sin. And yet, he did almost nothing. Jefferson was dependent on the very institution he professed to despise. His magnificent home, his fine wines, his endless library, all were sustained by forced labor. He profited from the cultivation of tobacco, a crop he himself called productive of infinite wickedness. Crippling personal debts made emancipation seem financially impossible in his mind. And so the man who gave voice to American liberty ultimately chose his curated lifestyle over the freedom of those who served him. The dreamer was chained to a brutal reality of his own design. The contradictory president. Jefferson's political life was shaped by a constant tension between lofty ideals and practical realities. As a philosopher, he championed limited federal power and a strict reading of the Constitution, warning that a strong executive posed a danger to liberty. Yet, once in office, the responsibilities of leadership challenged those very beliefs. The defining test came in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase. Napoleon's offer to sell an enormous territory that would double the size of the young nation was too transformative to refuse. Jefferson knew the Constitution gave him no explicit authority to acquire foreign land, making the deal technically unconstitutional by his own standards. Even so, the dreamer in him, who envisioned an empire of liberty stretching across the continent, prevailed. In accepting the deal, he achieved one of America's greatest expansions, while quietly betraying his strict constitutional principles, bending reality to fulfill his larger vision. The anxious master of Monticello. Nowhere are Jefferson's contradictions more visible. At Monticello, his architectural masterpiece, perfected over 40 years, mirrored his obsession with order. He followed strict routines, rising with the sun, plunging his feet into cold water, checking the wind through a pulley, and logging temperatures twice a day. He recorded the growth of peas, the bloom of flowers, every penny spent, and practiced violin for hours, all attempts to impose control on a chaotic world. But this meticulously crafted life was built on slavery. Sally Hemings, his late wife's half-sister and enslaved woman, lived at Monticello and bore at least 6 of his children. Yet Jefferson, who documented every trivial detail, never acknowledged them. His silence preserved the core contradiction of his life, the champion of liberty sustained by the enslavement of others. The strain may have manifested in debilitating migraines that drove him into dark rooms for days, physical echoes of a moral conflict he could never resolve. The legacy in stone. In his final years, Jefferson retreated into a near hermitage at Monticello, drowning in the debts that had haunted him his entire life. His last act was perhaps his most telling. In his will, he granted freedom to only a handful of the enslaved people he owned, all of them members of the Hemings family. The hundreds of other men, women, and children who served him were sold to pay his creditors. For them, the dreamer's final legacy was the auction block. Before he died, he composed his own epitaph, listing the only 3 achievements for which he wished to be remembered: author of the Declaration of American Independence, author of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and founder of the University of Virginia. He omitted that he was a 2-term president of the United States. He omitted that he had doubled the size of the country. It's a fascinating final puzzle. The man who radically expanded presidential power didn't want to be remembered for it. He wanted his legacy to be one of pure ideas, liberty, reason, and knowledge. In the end, he wanted to be remembered only as the dreamer. So, who was Thomas Jefferson? He was a brilliant champion of liberty who denied it to those he owned. He was a principled philosopher who abandoned his own rules for what he saw as a greater good. He was an anxious perfectionist who constructed a world of personal order upon a foundation of profound moral disorder. His life is a testament to the complex, often irreconcilable truths that lie at the heart of the American story itself. If you find these hidden histories compelling, subscribe and join us for Part 3, where we meet
the sorrowful giant, Abraham Lincoln. We'll explore his crushing depression, strange prophetic dreams, and the deep silences that defined him. But for now, let the quiet rituals of Monticello guide your thoughts. The cold water on the skin, the steady ticking of a clock, the methodical records marking the passage of day after day after day. Sleep well. The Dozerian will return.